The Norwell in which Gordon Wells grew up is a very different town, was a very different town than the one we now know. There was no vinyl school. There was no Norwell High School on South Street. No middle school on Main Street. Norwell High School is what we now call the Sparrow School, and where students went to elementary school was the Osborne School, which we now call the Town Hall. In 1962, there were only about 5,000 people living in Norwell. And the Norwell High School class of 1962 had a whopping 52 students. One of those students was Gordon, and according to the yearbook, his nickname was Flash. Gordon Flash Wells. So to present Gordon for induction, I would like to call to the podium Mary Beth Shea. Actually, I'm only kidding. I kind of got you though for a minute though, didn't I? Right? To present Gordon for induction, I'd like to please welcome one of the Norwell High School Athletic Hall of Fame's biggest supporters, and a man who I really enjoy working with and have enjoyed getting to know through this process, Norwell High School alumni, Mr. Chris Glynn.
Welcome all. I would like to ask one of my classmates of the class of 74 to help me. There was a problem with the time I spent 2 years ago inducting my fellow pal Mark Clough. And not to mention any names, I've been crucified for the last 2 years. I'm not going to mention any names, but Peter Shea, if you ever need a spare bedroom to stay in, come over to 70 Buttercup Lane. I understand your pain. So Peter, would the amazing Peter Valier please time my speech? Thank you, Peter. 2 years ago, I set forth a mission, planting the seeds for the induction of the 1972 football team for their 40th anniversary, to bring them into the Hall of Fame. As far as I knew, they were the first team in the history of Norwell High School to win a state championship. I was excited to present this group of guys that I grew up with, and a handful of two that I still chum with. There's about 10 of us that, 40 years later, we're the best of pals. Part of being on this committee that is very exciting is finding out what you don't know. Enter our resident track historian, and by the way, Boston Globe's track coach of the year, Chuck Martin, who is a new member of the committee. And if we get anybody in the crowd that's anything like Chuck, please come and see us. So Chuck calls me up one day and he tells me about a guy by the name of Miles Standish that ran in 16:22 at the Clemens Foundation. And the guy could run through the cornfields, and Chuck had his splits, and he said he did it in buckled shoes. I said, Chuck, this is the Norwell High School Hall of Fame, not Plymouth. So, needless to say, Chuck provided me with a huge dope slap about my history. He went into the track archives and he found out about one man in particular and a group of schoolmates who were attached to him who did something very special in 1960. They won Norwell's first state championship in cross country and maybe in the spring in track. The star of this group was Gordon Wells. He set a record at Franklin Park in 1960 and a cross-country record that had been held since World War II. I talked to numerous guys that knew Gordon growing up, and they said that no matter what distance he ran, whether it be the 100, the 440, the 880, the cross-country, he was the fastest person they had ever seen. He competed in 80 events in high school and won 76. I remember when I looked at the records, I saw that Gordon was competing against this guy by the name of Anderson from East Bridgewater. And Anderson beat Gordon by about a good minute. Then, fast forward the next year, I looked at the record, and Gordon beat him by a minute. And I said to Gordon, how did that happen? He said to me, Chris, I just didn't like losing. I just didn't like the way it felt. So he made sure that never happened again. He set records in the 880 and 2 events in his junior year. Growing up in Norwell in the 50s did not provide many organized athletic opportunities. Baseball was organized, and had only one league, no minor league, no farm league, behind the Osborne School. There was no complex across the lake. You either made it or you get cut. For football, boys from Gordon, Washington Park neighborhood would cross the street and meet up with the Brentwood Road gang. They would choose up sides and have some wild tackle football games on the field behind St. Helen's Church before the church was there. This was full contact, no pads. It was that simple. You went to the Sparrow School for high school. You ran track on a silly little circle behind the field, beside the field hockey field. And Felix Dixon, remember that guy? Felix Dixon. He coached everything but basketball and was the most admired man on the planet. After school and after sports, you cross the street on the main street, you stuck out your thumb. If you get lucky, you got a ride, or you walked home. Gordon would pray for rides home, and a lot of times he walked. So what would he do? How many remember Rudy Penazic? Rudy Penazic was the de facto mayor of Norwell, and if not that, he was at least the king of Route 53. And Rudy used to watch over his apple orchard. Well, Gordon would cut through the apple orchard, and he did the normal thing. He was a little bit hungry, young guy. He'd grab a few apples. So would his buddies. Well, Rudy would chase after him. This went on for a couple of years. Well, the third year, Gordon and his buddies are cutting through. They grab the apples, and they go taking off, and Rudy's looking at him, and he just waved. So about 30 years later, Gordon goes in and breaks the ice and buys a Christmas tree from Rudy. He says to Rudy, "Could you explain to me why you waved to me that last time?" And Gordon says, "Yeah." Rudy says, "Yeah. The reason why I waved to you was I saw your picture in the Brock Enterprise with all those track stars. You broke all those state records. I knew I couldn't catch you." Gordon went on to Michigan. He got a degree in structural engineering, and I'll let him tell you about his sport exploits there. But I am happy to present the husband of Judy for 31 years, the father of 4 daughters, the grandfather of 5, undoubtedly the prince of Washington Park Drive, and the champion of the class of 1962, Mr. Gordon Wells.
Good evening, everybody. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight's induction event and support Norwell High School sports in general. And I also want to thank Chris Glynn for that great introduction. I also want a special thanks to all the people on the induction committee, people that worked hard to put this together, make it a special night for all of us. So I also want to congratulate all the other inductees. When I was asked to speak tonight, I really didn't know what I should say. It was over 50 years ago when I attended Norwell High School. And those 4 years were terrific. I had wonderful teachers, terrific classmates, great teammates, and coaches who looked out for us. I played on varsity baseball, basketball, and track. But it really didn't matter what the sport was. I loved every minute of it. It didn't matter whether we were running push-ups, wind sprints. It was just a great time. My first organized sport was Little League Baseball 59 years ago, in 1953, which was the only organized sport in town at that time. I played for the Giants. My coach was a man by the name of Leroy McKay, who played me in center field. For the next 15 years, I played center field with whatever school I went to, including University of Michigan. Coach McKay stressed, wait for your pitch. Don't swing at the first one. My high school coach, Felix Dixon, had the same philosophy, look them over. My college coach, Maury Benedict, would say, make the pitcher work. To this day, I never understood it. If someone throws you a waist-high fastball down the center of the plate, you swing it. So tonight, I want to apologize to Coach McKay, Coach Dixon, and Coach Benedict if I was wrong. My track coach, cross-country coach, and basketball coach was Arthur Axon. Coach Axon was not only a great coach, he was a great man. His dedication to helping us all made every athlete better. He not only made better athletes, he made better people. I thank Coach Jackson tonight for all he did for me and everything he helped me accomplish. Mark Clough, Michelle Venera, Roger Karen, Keith Whitaker, Sarah Cox, Michelle Lorden, and the 1972 football team are the names of a few of the people and athletes who over the past 50 years have made us proud. I've watched at a distance as all the athletes of Norwell High have raised the bar of excellence to the high standard of today. Tomorrow, next week, next month, a new name, a new face, and a new talent will put on a blue and gold uniform. He or she will run for a first down or a touchdown, score a basket to tie up in a game, or break the take to win a running event. The feeling at that moment is what it's all about. It's not about ribbons, it's not about medals or trophies. It's about doing the best you can for your team, the school, but most importantly yourself. In closing, it's tough to put into words the spirit of high school sports, but it's something you never forget. The teammate that made that block so you can score, your teammate handing you a baton in a relay race, or the great pass so you can score on an easy layup. You remember every name even 50 years later. Playing Little League Baseball behind the Cold School, football behind St. Helens Church, track meets at White Stadium, or the big house in Michigan. It's all the same big. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. I love this event, and one of the reasons that I love this event is because I love history. And for those of us who grew up in Norwell in the 80s and who live in Norwell now, isn't it amazing to think that there used to be an apple orchard that people would run through on Route 53? Now you'd be running through Marsh's liquor store and somebody would be shooting at you, as opposed to running and, oh, take the apples, have a nice day, you know? It's crazy.